QuickBooks Pro Plus Desktop 2022 OneNote presentation. Options for entering items, customers, and vendors. Let's get into it with Intuit's QuickBooks Pro Plus Desktop 2022. If you have access to OneNote, would like to follow along, not required to, but if would like to, we're in the icon left-hand side, topic introduction 6240, options for entering items, customers, and vendors. Also take a look at the Immersive Reader tool, topic introductions in the text area too. Same name, same number, but with transcripts that can be translated into multiple languages, either listened to or read in them. Same name and number as presentation as well. Topic introductions designed to give an introduction to the topic. Screenshots, links where applicable, accounting background to complement the presentations can also be used to follow along with the presentations if you don't have access to the software at that time. Closing the icon on the left-hand side, first we have the screenshot of the home page. Now we're going to be considering the beginning balances as we start up a new company file. When you start up a new company file in QuickBooks, you might start it just with nothing in it and just start from that point forward, but it's likely that you have something set up already, possibly just a bank account, but it's also likely that you might have some other accounting system that has some more information to it, either a formal one in some other software, or in Excel, or a spreadsheet, or an informal one that just has some accounts that people owe you money or you owe them money and so on. You need to get those beginning balances into the system. Best way to do that typically being pick a cutoff date, which for us is going to be the beginning of the year, often a good cutoff date. So even if you're starting in the middle of the year, oftentimes you want to enter the data for a full years of data into one accounting system. That's going to be January 1st, 2022. This then is going to be the data as of the end of the prior year. So we have basically a trial balance, or in essence, a balance sheet that we need to enter into the system. The question then being how best to enter this into the system. If you have accounting background, you probably just say, why don't I just enter it in as a journal entry such as this? But it's not quite that simple because many of these accounts have some complications that we need to take consideration of as we enter them into the system. The checking account having possibly outstanding checks that we're going to have to deal with and or deposits. The receivables having to be linked to customers in the QuickBooks system. Inventory, if we're tracking it in the computer, is going to need inventory items to support that balance. And then the furniture and fixture, we're going to need subledgers, which might be outside of the QuickBooks system. Accounts payable needs vendors to support that number. That means who we owe the money to. The Visa is pretty straightforward. Loan payable, often pretty straightforward. And then we've got the equity section. So what we will typically do in software is enter these one at a time, which if you have an accounting background, you might say, well, that's crazy. How am I going to do the other side of the transaction if I enter one thing at a time? And what will happen is the system will record everything else, the other side of each transaction as we enter it into the equity section, so that we'll enter each number basically one at a time, trying to take care of the subledgers where applicable. And the QuickBooks system will report everything else to equity, the other side to balance out. And then at the end of the day, everything should balance out given that system. That's the general concept. So if we go to the list dropdown and the chart of accounts, here's the chart of accounts that we have to work with. These are the accounts that were set up by the Intuit system. We can generally use these accounts to set up our beginning balances as we move forward. We might need to add new accounts, but it's good to use the accounts that are there when applicable, possibly changing the name if you need to. We are now in the customer center, going to a new customer. This is what it looks like to have a new customer. Notice this opening balance item right there. Those opening balances are what we're going to be using in QuickBooks in order to set up the opening balances. This then, if we add an opening balance for a customer, will increase the accounts receivable account because the customers are linked to the receivable account here. So that's how we're going to have to enter those amounts into the receivables. If we go to the items list here, this is our list of items. All we have here, the items we set up for the sales tax, but these are the places we're going to set up items for service items and inventory items. The inventory items that we have on hand will also have to be used to make up the information to calculate our inventory account and give us the sub data for it. We do that by adding the items and adding something to the cost, and then we'll have an opening balance or the amount on hand at the particular point in time, which will allow QuickBooks to calculate that beginning balance. On the vendor side of things, similar idea here, vendor meaning people we owe money to. As we set up the accounts payable, we want to set up the vendors and have the open balance put in place for the accounts payable, which will then populate the AP for us and allow QuickBooks to have the subledgers related to them, related to the vendors that we owe the money to.